Welcome to a world where design shapes how we live. I am Colette Angelucci. On Designers Exchange, we step inside the minds of designers, estate agents, property developers, and luxury brands shaping beautiful living. We begin with their story, where they come from, what shaped them, and what they've built. This is where inspiration lives.
Andrew, thank you so much for joining me today. I
Pleasure.
really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for
I'm
having me.
honored
I'm honoured.
that.
But you and I go back quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we started our careers
So,
roughly
you
at the same
started your
time.
career before me,
Oh, just before.
but then you were the inspiration behind my career
And now
start.
you've become my inspiration, so thanks for having me.
Andrew, let's take it back from the beginning. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up on I suppose you could say, the classic old KZN farm Midlands family. I was very fortunate to grow up in such beautiful surroundings, which is a different aesthetic to us high-felt environments. So, and of course, the lifestyle in that particular time as well, I think has definitely played a role in what I'm doing today. But I was very fortunate to grow up in such beautiful surroundings, as I said, in the Midlands.
So what was it like growing up there?
Well, I'm a product of a boarding school chap from a very, very young age. I still remember sort of jumping into bed and just being so freezing cold and having lukewarm showers. Maybe that's why I have a penchant for sort of luxury today, I think. But maybe my career was born out of trauma. I don't know. But it was a very, very beautiful upbringing. And yeah, boarding school's got a very different narrative to it. And growing up, I was raised by a single mum, and that plays and does play a huge, big role in hopefully what we might be discussing a little bit later in interior design. Yeah.
I think boarding schools are actually also quite a great in a sense where it really teaches one to have structure in life.
Absolutely. Structure. I mean, I'm completely ADD, as you probably know. So I think
Wow,
boarding school
thanks
for
to
someone
that.
like me was probably not such a bad thing in the end. I always say, a lot of parents ask me, I think one shoe doesn't fit all. Always look at the young person. Not everyone's cut up for boarding school. And I think also boarding schools have changed dramatically. But again, just thanks to my mum, I was very fortunate to attend a very beautiful boarding school, which was something out of a Harry Potter film, I think. I mean, it was quite extraordinary. Yeah, no, and time stood still, so I was lucky.
So what did your mom and dad do?
My mum still remains an old school nursing sister. So if you want structure, if you want to know how to make a bed, I think you better phone my mum, Pam. She knows exactly how to do a hospital corner. And admittedly, I still don't know how to do it.
I was just about to say, is that where you got it from?
I think if she saw me styling up a bed today, I think she'd be absolutely horrified.
Do you have any siblings, Andrew?
I do. I have a younger brother, Murray, and 5 years my junior, and we're just completely polar opposites. And I think that's, so I think my mum certainly had her hands full.
What kind of a child were you growing up?
In one word, nightmare. I was an absolute nightmare. And I think it's only as one gets older, one gets to really appreciate one's parents and almost become softer somehow. I wasn't an easy child, but also don't forget, I think experiencing very early divorce and changing of space and home, which played a huge, big part in how we were raised as children. My mum would always go ahead and set up our bedrooms. Doesn't matter how many boxes were packed in the hallway, etc. But the moment you walked into our bedroom, it was perfectly set up. And it wasn't a principle about beauty. It was the principle about safety. And as that principle, the lighting had to be right. I suffered terribly from nightmares as a child. And she figured out certain ways that don't turn off the light. She just changed the light bulb to, I think it was a blue. In those days, I think you got green, blue, and white. It was and Paddington Bear was on the bed waiting for me, my little blanket. And I think those principles of design show us and make us feel home safety, and calm.
Sure, absolutely.
So, am I influenced by that today? Without question. And I don't think one gets to learn that at some rather clever school. So thanks, Mum.
I have a question just off the topic. Like, do you think growing up being so creative was a part of you being that nightmare child? Just mainly because it's so difficult to outlive one's creativity in boarding school in such strict environments.
Absolutely, Colette. And I think also the period, the time. I think in those particular days, I don't think there was many outlets. Little boys, unfortunately, weren't allowed to go join the girls at dance school or the ballet school. It was soccer, rugby, or something to do with the ball. That was, I think, frustrating. And I think you've touched on something quite deep there, because yes, I think if I had a creative outlet as such, I think there might be a different product. That said, I still hold on to some of the chaos and nightmare today, which I think plays out in my work. So I don't think it's such a bad thing. A little bit of chaos can be quite beautiful.
That's the thing. It does shape one. But from my own experience, I definitely also, because I rebelled completely at a certain age, but I think I was so frustrated because there was subject A, B, and C, and that's what you had to do. And I mean, I couldn't do it, and it didn't interest me at all. And I think maybe it's just a whole lot of circumstances that I rebelled completely.
Absolutely. There was a lot of rebelling as well.
I mean, I have a lot of for my mom, my late mom, I often feel like, sure, thanks, Mom. I don't know how you did that. But...
I'm sorry. Sorry, Mom. Sorry about that. Yeah. Gosh, I don't know if we're talking about interior design or we're spilling the beans. It's like being on the safe with one's therapist. But I think it shapes us as designers, doesn't it? Without projecting that stuff onto our clients. But I'm glad it wasn't rubbed out of us, that we managed to hold on. Maybe that's our rebellious nature. Yeah. Anyway, I wasn't going to be anything great at any type of sport, so hell, may as well just keep going with what I've got.
So what did you want to become when you were younger?
I was convinced I was going to be the next Oscar-winning performer. There was no doubt about it. And then years later, that Charlize Theron woman, well, eclipsed me. And clearly I wasn't going to be anything. I was completely hopeless. So I found my younger years treading the boards, as it were, in the world of theatre. I studied theatre and I studied music. I played a bit of trumpet here and there. Again, hopeless.
Awesome.
Yeah, hopeless.
I didn't know that.
Didn't you?
No,
thank goodness, because you would have probably asked me to play and I wouldn't have got through a bad scale. I can probably get through Mary Had a Little Lamb or something, but that was about it. But I looked great.
Chopsticks.
I looked super. Yeah, chopstick. So then theatre, and then I moved up to Johannesburg to become a theatre actor. And so I spent a lot of time in the theatre, especially in children's theatre and educational theatre, etc. And that, I think, would be the second layer or stage in my design, my love of design, where I was exposed to wonderful sets, period, style, textile, which I don't think a lot of formal education gives you. So working with those set designers was just extraordinary, and how they understood lighting, which is just key in any sport. We all know that, right?
No, absolutely.
And also wonderful ways to, I dare say the word, to inexpensively pull off a very beautiful look. So to have that discipline as an interior designer, by default, again, I count myself very, very lucky, very fortunate.
You've mentioned that you worked in theatre, so what was your first ever job?
Well, I'd like to say that it was some wonderful starring role in some show, but sadly, it wasn't. I was a waiter for many, many years, but I was very fortunate to work in many wonderful award-winning restaurants in Johannesburg, especially. And you've worked, and I think we all did that bit of my feet are still sore today. So it's here restaurant here paying. But again, wonderful time that did influence my career. Learning about food, educating one's palate. I never had those opportunities. And just drinking way too much wine at the wine tasting. No one said spit it out. Yeah, so it was great.
So, it's all got to do with design, regardless of where you work. If you work in restaurants, it definitely is the start of creating beauty.
Absolutely, because it's about lifestyle. So I think my life by default, whilst I probably at times criticize myself and say, gosh, it sounds like someone who's got too broad a CV. No, I think it's all led to these moments that I'm experiencing now and finding my home in myself as a designer, as an interior designer.
So what made you start Andrew Mackenzie Interiors?
Well, believe it or not, there's a wonderful story, but I won't go too long. But I was bought for 20,000 Rand to go live in a rug store. So I was taken out due to a bad debt or something, and this very well-known rug designer, hint, hint.
I know.
And so I went to work for him, and I didn't know anything about rugs, so from waitering to rugs. And I was there for about 3 years. And in that time, I was just thrown into this incredible world of design, where I was fortunate to work with something alongside or in the background of wonderful, great designers, which by default became mentors. And there was no question about it. It was like a bug. I was told never to go down this route. I didn't listen. And here we are today.
And you don't regret it? We have moments, but we don't regret it.
Look, it's a business. No one said you need to go, and you know what I mean? I was completely ignorant. But if the passion wasn't there, you and I wouldn't be sitting here today, 10 odd years later.
What was your hardest early days?
As a designer?
As a designer.
I suddenly through my mind so many wonderful scenarios, literal scenarios, but I think the greatest challenge for me was overcoming an inferiority complex of sorts. What I would possibly say is an imposter syndrome. Suddenly saying, right, are you an interior designer? To be able to look in the mirror and not feel like a fraud. That was hard, to really take ownership and be accountable for my work and step away from the comparison stuff, because a lot of us interior designers work alone and it can be a very lonely road. So I think it was overcoming imposter syndrome and keeping that ego in check. Yeah.
So Ans, this is exactly why I started Designers Exchange.
Ready.
Is there to support one another.
We're much stronger on the shoulders of others. I mean, to quote, and just to say what's been happening, it's been a wonderful forum. Thank you. Because it's not just about loneliness, it's actually just putting ego aside and leaning into other people's greatness that we may all achieve, and also for the client. You know what I mean? I think for so many years, traditionally, designers have been islands, and I've never quite understood that. Joint forces creates much better work. And information's free. I don't see what's this holding on to. Sure, we are creatives. There are a lot of egos traditionally around. But I think I'm noticing, I don't know if it's a changing trend, that egos are going now.
So tell me something. Okay, I know you've had quite a lot of them, but what has been your proudest moment so far?
Well, I think as a young decorator who's sort of chasing the dragon of supposed success. Success never came in the ways that I thought it would. It came in the most subtlest ways. Sure, there was the hallmarks, which was many years ago, a terrified young designer who you met, who did a little stand that was sponsored and brought in all these greyhounds, and I think I wasn't sober that entire show. I was just so nervous and frightened. And the next thing, my name got called out, and apparently I got an award. I couldn't believe it.
But we have to talk about it, because I will never forget that. I remember you setting up your stand. It was the day before the show started. and it was absolute chaos. And I think it was about
And they spelt my name wrong or
11
something.
o'clock,
Yeah.
11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Final
And
touch-ups.
I will never forget it. You turned around and you looked at me like, Coles, this was supposed to be the sound for 𝑇𝘩𝑒. And I will never forget you asking me if I had lipstick with me, and I said, I do. And you took the lipstick and you wrote on the mirror,
A Dear Johnny letter.
Dear John,
Yeah.
I've left the dark and I've taken the 𝑘𝐸𝑤𝑒.
Well, P.S. don't forget to feed the dog. Yeah, it was so the night before we opened, we decided the stand was going to be a love letter or a rejection, a Dear Johnny letter. Yeah.
And you won the
Yeah.
award.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Maybe the tip we'll take away from that is be careful of this thing about perfection. I do believe beauty lies in such wonderful mistakes. But yeah, that and a lot of gin and tonics, I think. Yeah. But it was great. It was affirming.
great.
It was terrifying.
And the stand was amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, you
Oh,
won,
I'm,
so-
I'm glad you were there. And
Yeah.
thank you for your support in that little moment. Dogs weeing all over the place. It was just chaos, you know.
I'm sure you had a lot of those, but have you ever had a moment where you wanted to quit?
Sometimes I think it's like a writer or any artist. You know, the art itself can be a double-edged sword where it is stimulating, challenging, and beautiful, but it can also be very, very, very harsh. And I think people think of us as interior designers, as artists, and I'm not so sure. I think first and foremost, we're clinical psychologists. At the end of the day, we are working with human beings. We're not just working with what we like. So separating that ego and focusing on that human being, I think there's a false impression out there of what we really do. So where's the challenge? It's dealing with human beings and managing human beings in their personal environments. And that comes with some wonderful stories.
It's also, you know, it's so personal. Every client's different. Where design is so personal, we literally have to get into their minds, not only their spaces, but we have to get into their minds.
Absolutely. That was my first great tip I ever received, was from a Japanese monk who was selling lovely treasures here in Johannesburg. And he said, do you want to be a designer? I said, oh, I'm going to be a designer. He said, well, let me teach you how to be one right now. Just couldn't believe it. And he said, when you walk into a space, before you do, it was a great, great piece of advice, and I try and follow it today. Leave yourself at the door. You're an empty vessel. It's got nothing to do with you. And I've noticed that the moment oneself comes into it, you run risk of great damage. We are literally vessels. It's not about our great work. When people say, oh gosh, you did such a beautiful home, or you did such a beautiful this. 90% of my work is not publishable. It's not photographable, but it's perfect for that person. And that's where I think it's important. Yeah. It's translating the people that live there. It's not showpieces. And that's what we do. I think it'll be quite nice to have free reign every now and again. But at the end of the day, it's about human beings. It's not about us. Or certainly in the residential market, that is.
No, I agree with you 100%. It's about that individual person.
In fact, so much so, I think now, if someone said to me, okay, go and interpret this hotel, free reign, I don't know what I would do. Because we're so used to sort of understanding others. But maybe one day.
So maybe really always remember those wonderful words of that monk. When you enter a room, leave yourself behind.
Especially when it comes
outside.
to someone's home. You know, unless you're interpreting a brand or a hotel or a game lodge or something, I think that's different. But a lot of my work has been primarily residential up to now. So, yeah.
I love a residential. I must say it's personal. What is a big thing for me is going into a person's space and to create the beauty that they know they want, but they can't put it together, is to be the person to actually put it together for them.
And there's another answer to that wonderful question. What would you say is your greatest success? It was a little postcard that was sent to me by my second or third client that simply read, "Thank you so much for interpreting our lives. Love X." And that's when I knew I was going to be an interior designer. That was the actual note. And my motto has always been, it's about interpreting the people that live there. And I take that quite seriously, and I'm quite proud of that. So when a simple note, when you interpret human beings within their living space, gosh, I think you've done a great job.
What was the most ridiculous thing you've done for aesthetics?
I don't know. I think a lot of my work is absolutely absurd. It's completely absurd. And where does that come from? Spontaneity, I think. One man's absurdity is another man's design. I think what I have learned from other designers, and a nod to you, is that the older we get, we become less brave. And I think I should be doing more absurd things. I think we should be. I think when we're young, and we have all this wonderful energy, and we're going to be winning Oscars, and we're going to be superstars, unfortunately, the quiet sobriety of age has a negative effect where we play safe. So I think to return back to that, to absolutely take tea bags and stain things and take more risks is what I want to do. So as you said, the question, I could probably rattle off one or two things, but I thought, gosh, when last did I do something crazy? Because I think in the craziness comes originality.
Andrew, you've been fantastic.
Thanks for
I'm
having
so
me.
great.
Could be here all day.
Thank you so much for joining
Thank
me.
you. Thank you so much. My
If
pleasure.
you've enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, I'm your host, Colette Angelucci, and this is Designers Exchange.